Hey, what's going on, Duelist? I'm Sean Arnold here, and today I'm going to just show off a deck which I've been using a lot offline. It's a deck which a lot of people have asked me for tips on, so I'm going to show this off here, and it's my Exodia deck. But also, I'm more excited about talking about this deck, particularly because I think it's going to allow me to talk more about card advantage. Card advantage is something which I talked about in a previous video. I made a whole video dedicated to it, and if you haven't seen it, go ahead and watch it. But I think this will also allow me to talk about deck building with card advantage, and for a deck which more people are interested in using. So yeah, let's just put this in some perspective here. I've been doing the Duelist challenges a lot recently, and just to get certain cards, especially to make videos for you guys, and it takes a long time, you know, with the card shop being so random and the Duelist challenges only giving you 3 cards at a time. It can be a long time or take a while to just grind out cards in order to basically make the deck which you want. And so I wanted to find a way which would speed this up, or yeah, just make it really quicker overall. And so an Exodia deck is really great for that. There are some other types of decks like this, like a Blast in the Ruins deck or a Magical Explosion deck, which really work well for just grinding out the campaign mode. But I've chosen to use Exodia because Exodia is quite popular amongst newer players. So this is my Exodia deck here, and I've put some cards to the side because I want to talk about these ones first. These cards here are my +0 cards. A +0 card is a card which evens out its cost in terms of its gain. So these could be monster effects. Monster effects like Emissary of the Afterlife, Sangan, and Witch of the Black Forest are really good. They're not very strong cards. They don't really... You might be able to destroy a monster with Emissary of the Afterlife, but ideally you're just putting them on the field to use their effects. And their effects allow you to search your deck for one type of card as you use it. And so essentially, when you use the card, when you put Sangan down on the field, or Witch of the Black Forest, or Mystery of the Afterlife, you're doing so with the intention of losing it, but in return you're going to gain it. By losing it, you lose 1 card. By gaining a card in return, you add 1 card, and add 1, take away 1 equals 0. So this is what we call a +0 card. Pot of Duality is also a +0 card. When you play Pot of Duality, you lose this card, and technically you kind of lose your special summon for that turn, although if that was really important to you, then why would you use Pot of Duality? But in return, you get to search the top 3 cards of your deck, and you get to choose 1 card from it. It's a really solid +0 card, and every deck should consider running Pot of Duality if special summoning isn't too important to them. Upstart Goblin is a similar one, so is Jar of Greed, in that you play the card and you get to draw 1 card. Upstart Goblin's downside is that you give your opponent 1000 life points, and Jar of Greed's downside is that you give, well, it's a trap card, so it's a little bit slower. But again, these are +0 cards, which help you get to your bigger cards quicker. +0 cards not only apply to drawing and searching your deck, but also to creating some kind of condition or reducing your opponent's number of cards as well. So a card like Threatening Roar or Waboku for an Exodia deck can be considered a +0 card, because essentially what you're doing is you're stopping your opponent's attack for a turn so that you can draw another card and get into something which will help you to win in the following turn. So by putting this down, you stop your opponent's attack, and then you draw another card, just trying to hold them back for a turn. And this can be considered a +0 because you're losing these cards in the process, but then you get to your draw more safely in the next turn. And it's not just these types of effects. Monster removal effects also can be looked in terms of being a +0 card. Smashing Ground is really great for this. Really consistent card to use. You play Smashing Ground, and you lose the card, but by destroying one of your opponent's monster, you gain a card. Now, playing +0 cards isn't going to be enough for you to win a duel, and you should be able to look for that if you're making a deck. You should be thinking to yourself, okay, how many +0 cards am I using here, and what are they leaning towards? Ideally, you want to use your +0 cards to get you towards your +1, perhaps even +2 advantage cards. And if you can do that, then that's when you start building an advantage over your opponent. Whoever does that the fastest usually wins the game. So some examples of +1 cards here are Pot of Greed. Pot of Greed is a fantastic +1 card. You lose 1 card by playing it, but you get to draw 2 cards. It's easily one of the best cards in the game, which is why it's banned. But you can use it in the offline campaign mode, so feel free to go nuts. Your computer will, opponents will use it against you, so you know, don't hold back on that, I think. Graceful Charity. Graceful Charity is an interesting one. Graceful Charity lets you draw 3 cards, but then you discard 2. In terms of numbers alone, it's a +0 card because technically you're losing 3 cards for the cost of for the advantage of 3 cards. But Graceful Charity is, by searching your deck and actually sending the cards to your grave, it really gives you an advantage in the long run, especially if you can combine it with certain effects like, let's say, Sinister Serpent. In a nutshell, Sinister Serpent comes back from the grave to your hand every time you discard it, assuming it doesn't get banished in your opponent's end phase. And so if you use Graceful Charity and then discard Sinister Serpent or Hand Destruction and then bring back Sinister Serpent, it kind of mitigates the cost. And there are many other ways. Dark Worlds would love Graceful Charity. This would work so well with them. Speaking of Dark World, we've also got Dark World Dealings. Dark World Dealings lets you draw 1 card, but then you have to discard 1 card. Dark World Dealings technically on paper is actually a -1 card because you're losing 2 cards for the game of 1 card. But having some -1 cards are okay as long as you can kind of balance it out with your +0s and your +1s and +2s, which this deck does quite well. Hand Destruction is kind of similar in that it's a -3, you gain 2, so you know it's a -1 card, but this deck kind of evens it out. One Day of Peace. One Day of Peace could also be considered a -1 card because your opponent gets to draw a card as well as you do. But the fact that it stops all damage for until the end of your opponent's next turn means it's kind of like Waboku or Threatening Roar, so it's kind of like 2 cards in 1. For this deck, it really helps out. In fact, I think this deck is kind of underrated. Even though it's limited, it's a great comeback card. And so if you're kind of on the ropes and you just need to hold your opponent back for a turn, you can kind of use One Day of Peace and a hold of their aggressive nature for a little while. So adding +1 in terms of advantage isn't going to win you the duel. Ideally, you want to use your +1 cards to then get you towards your win condition, and your win condition is whatever your deck is centered around. Normally it will be attacking for most people, but for an Exodia deck, that's going to be about getting the pieces of Exodia. And essentially when I play this deck, I'm not actually looking to draw the pieces of Exodia, I'm actually looking to draw my +1 cards, so that my +1 cards will gain me the Exodia cards for free. But I'm going to show that to you in a duel. Okay, so I'm doing the reverse duel Tough Love because I want to get my hand on some of Sane Truesdale cards. I've been thinking about doing a Cyber Dragon deck because there's been a lot of new Cyber Dragon cards recently, and I kind of just am interested to see what they're like. So I want to play against Sane Truesdale, although I'm also trying to get his Duelist Challenge mode. And so I'm going to just kind of narrate myself playing this game as I go along in terms of advantage. Right, this is a brilliant opening hand. This is an amazing opening hand for an Exodia deck. 3 Pot of Greeds, fantastic. Plus 1 Day of Peace is just fantastic. So I'm going to play first my +1 advantage cards because they will give me more cards in the long run. So there's 1 Pot of Greed. And there's another Pot of Greed. Now that I've done my +1 cards, I now want to do my +0 cards. So I'm going to play Pot of Duality, Jar of Greed. Hopefully I can get another +1 card, but if not, I'll have to settle for a +0. I actually don't want to pick those pieces of Exodia. I want them to come later. I'm gonna go for Jar of Greed. And now I'm going to play 1 Day of Peace, which means I don't really need Waboku this turn, and I've kind of got 3 1 Day of Pieces. That should be all that I need. Now I've got Graceful Charity. I'm going to play Graceful Charity, and that's going to let me draw several cards. So I don't really need Waboku, and I don't really need Threatening Roar, so I'm going to get rid of those 2. And I've already got 1 Day of Peace down, so I'm going to put down my 2 +0 cards here. And last but not least, I'm going to play Card D. Card D is a fantastic monster, although he can be a bit slow for some decks. What Card D does is you can summon it in your main phase 1, and then you can tribute it for its effect, and its effect is basically Pot of Greed, but it then ends your turn. And plus you also have to discard for your hand if you forget, like myself, to actually put down more cards than you should. So let me put down a card and get rid of it. I'll put down Hope for Escape. Now some Exodia decks do work on revival, on bringing back pieces of Exodia from the graveyard. I'm hoping to never discard a piece, which is why I want to focus on drawing them as late as possible. Zane's using his Cyber Dark this is Cyber Dark Dragon, yeah, Cyber Dark Dragon deck. This was a cool deck, but it lacks a lot of, it doesn't have the same oomph as, say, a Cyber Dragon deck. But I've been thinking about maybe making a Cyber Dark deck just to see what it's like. Anyway, now that I'm in my main phase 1, I've got 1 day of peace, so that's going to be my +1 for this turn. Hopefully I can draw into something else that's really good. And now, oh, I forgot about my Jar of Greeds. Let's use those, my other +0s. Hopefully I can get more +1s. I've got 4 pieces of Exodia so far, so let's start digging the deck out. Let's see if I can get something good. Maybe the final piece of Exodia now would be good, or any more +1 cards. Sangan could actually just get me the last piece of Exodia, but I'm going to go for Upstart Goblin. And then I'm going to put down Upstart Goblin. Where are you? There you are. And now I'm going to use Shard of Greed. I probably should have just used Sangan. I could have probably won in the next turn with a Sangan, but I don't know whether he's going to really attack me with 1 day of peace in effect. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I need to get rid of a card. So let me put down a Mystery of the Afterlife. Let's find out if he attacks me. Although Mystery of the Afterlife is kind of useless because I've got no more monsters. Whatever, it's okay. Really should have used Sangan actually. And he managed to get a monster. Okay. I don't have any though, do I? Okay, hopefully I can end it on this turn here. So let me use Graceful Charity. 1, 2, 3. Let's get rid of. Let's get rid of Shard of Greed. I'm not going to be waiting another 2 turns for that. Let's get rid of Witch of the Black. Should I get rid of Witch? I could get rid of Witch. Although Witch will probably guarantee me the win. So let me do right by my last turn and let me use Witch. I will get rid of Pot of Duality. Let me play Upstart. That's a Jar of Greed. We play 1 day of peace. Dark World Dealings. Let's play Dark World Dealings. Let's discard Serpent. I'm glad I managed to get to him because I now can show off his effect. And let's put Witch down and put Jar of Greed down. No, I don't want to activate. Jar of Greed can be a really flexible 1-for-1 card. Just be careful about using it in certain decks because sometimes it might be better to use, say, like a destruction type of 1-for-1 card. And there we go. All pieces of Exodia. So it's really quite simple. It's really great at just... oh, Pot of Braveries. I've been looking for that. It's really great at just... going through the campaign and the Duelist challenges as quickly as you can. That is if you're not enjoying it. Obviously I don't want you to use a deck like this if you're still enjoying the campaign and enjoying the story, but if you just want to get through it as quickly as possible, then this could be a good deck to use. So now I just want to end this video on one more discussion, and that is just to talk about a bit more about the history of this game. See, when this game used to be managed by Upper Deck Entertainment for a long time, let's say like I think it was up to 5Ds was in mostly full effect, where Upper Deck Entertainment, which I don't know if they're still running, I don't know if they still have games, none of them. But basically, Upper Deck Entertainment used to be a company which used to run Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG and other trading card games for a Japanese company like Konami, who Konami didn't have the resources to manage this game for the whole world, so they would give it to a company like Upper Deck, who were an American-based company, and they would balance the game for TCG. So what you had was the TCG and the OCG. The original card game, which was played in Japan and still is called the original card game because they get cards first. But then you also had the trading card game. And sometimes there will be conflicting rules. Why would I talk about this is because you're going to find that a lot of newer players or a lot of returning players come into the game now and say they don't understand why certain things are the way they are. Particularly in the fact that most newer decks seem kind of broken, in that they just seem to gain advantage so ridiculously easy. And they're right, they do. Some of these decks gain advantage in crazy ways, and it feels unbalanced. Now, Upper Deck basically, let's think of Upper Deck as a parent. Upper Deck raised old Duelist. This is going to be kind of silly, but Upper Deck raised old Duelist kind of on the principle that if you are 3+1s aren't fair. A card like Pot of Greed isn't fair to use because it's a 3+1. And Sangan and Witch of the Black Forest were really powerful +0 effects, so they were often banned for quite a long time. So was Graceful Charity because they were so powerful. And so then a lot of people had to make do with the +0 cards, and the kind of cards which kind of replaced Pot of Greed were cards like, if I just limit my genre down to draw. And so then we had a bunch of cards like this, Allure of Darkness, or Destiny Draw, or where is Trading? These cards had a cost applied to them so that they kind of evened it out. Let's say Trading, you have to discard one level 8 monster and then you get to draw 2 cards. For that, you're losing 2 cards in order to gain those 2 cards. It's a good +0 card, but it's a balanced +0 card, and it was more fair for back in the day. And so a lot of people kind of a bit put off by the game right now because a lot of the new effects kind of just give you cards for free. And I think that has a lot to do with the way Konami has managed the game in terms of limiting and releasing newer cards. The game is more fast paced than it ever was, which is kind of a good thing, but at the same time it's kind of harder for certain types of decks to kind of keep up with the newer type of decks because the newer type of decks are just so ridiculously powerful. But I just want you guys to keep that in mind so that when you're building your deck, look for the cards which gain you plus in advantage, and those, hopefully those plus in advantage will lead you towards your win condition. Oh yeah, that was one more thing I wanted to talk about. One more thing before the end of this video. Sorry for keeping you guys for so long. Hopefully you're still with me. +0 and +1 effects obviously are the most desirable, but only if they gain you, they give you something in return in the long run, or they get you towards your win condition. For example, Thunder Dragon. Thunder Dragon is a +1 card, hopefully. If you say draw 1 in your opening hand, you can discard 1 and add 2 to your hand. That's a +1 effect. A really good +1 effect. However, if you can't use the dragon for any other purpose than just filling it out your deck, then it's not necessarily going to help you win the game. So when you do want to use your +1 effects, hopefully they will help, or try to design your deck in a way that it will lead you towards your win condition for the game. I think Card D is a good example of this. Card D is a very good +1 card. However, because it ends your turn, it means you can't attack for that turn, and that could be a real downside for you, because if your winning is to attack, then you know you're holding off your win condition for a whole turn. So just think about that when you're building your deck and coming up with your next big thing that you have to show off. So hopefully this video has been useful to some of you guys. Hopefully it's been useful to some of those guys who've been asking me about tips for Exodia. Hopefully it's been useful to those guys who've been asking for ways to beat the campaign faster. And hopefully it's been useful to everyone to just understand card advantage a bit more. And if it is, or if it wasn't, please leave me some feedback and let me know how I'm doing with these videos. And if you have any requests, as always, just pop me a message. Hit me up on PSN or at the Arnold's Play, or hit me up on YouTube, or hit me up on Twitter. And yeah, I always get back to my messages as soon as I can. And if you just want to play, hit me up on PSN and then we can play sometime. Anyway, I've kept you guys for long enough. Thank you so much for watching this video as always. Thank you so much for spending your time and giving me your attention. And yeah, I hope to see you in the near future. Much love, take care, and goodbye.